The night sky over Damascus erupted in fire on July 20th, 2025. Explosions thundered across the city as Israeli jets struck deep inside Syrian territory. This was no routine airstrike, it was a bold escalation. The targets were high profile, including sites near the presidential palace. The world watched as smoke rose from one of the oldest cities on earth. The message was unmistakable. Israel was challenging Syria's new leader, Ahmed al-Shara, known as Al-Golani. Al-Golani's government, which replaced Assad, had promised a new era. Hopes for peace flickered briefly, but the bombing shattered them. Old conflicts had returned with new intensity. The attack pushed both nations to the brink of wider war. International calls for calm came too late. The damage was done. This strike was more than military. It was a statement about Syria's new regime. Al-Golani's government, led by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, had tried to present a moderate face. They courted Western and Arab nations, promising stability. Israel's strike showed deep skepticism of these promises. Hitting so close to the seat of power was a direct challenge to Al-Golani. For Damascus residents, it was another night of terror after years of war. The fall of Assad was supposed to bring hope, but fear returned. Syria remains a battleground for regional power struggles. The country is fractured and its future uncertain. Israeli bombs destroyed more than buildings. They crushed fragile hopes for peace. Now the world waits to see how Al-Golani will respond. His next move could shape the fate of millions. The balance of power in the Middle East has shifted. The consequences of this night will echo for years. The region holds its breath. The Israeli airstrikes were surgical, targeting more than just military sites. One bomb landed near the presidential palace, a symbolic blow to the heart of the new regime. Israel wanted to show that no place, not even Al-Golani's seat of power, was safe. Another key target, a command center linked to the crackdown on the Druze in Suwaida. By destroying it, Israel directly intervened in Syria's internal conflict. Weapons depots were also hit, igniting massive explosions. These sites reportedly held advanced missiles, potential threats to Israel. The human toll was immediate, at least 16 dead, many more wounded. Among the casualties were Syrian soldiers, security forces, and foreign fighters allied with HTS. Syrian state media called it a barbaric act, accusing Israel of sowing chaos. Hospitals overflowed with the wounded, but the choice of targets revealed Israel's strategy: degrade Syria's military, send a political message, and support the Druze. By striking command centers behind the Suwaida violence, Israel signaled solidarity with the Druze minority. This was not random violence. It was a calculated operation. The attack mixed military, political, and humanitarian motives. Israel wanted to weaken the regime, deter future aggression, and show it could act decisively. The world saw a demonstration of Israeli intelligence and reach. The new Syrian government was put on notice. The message: Israel will not tolerate threats to its security or to vulnerable minorities. The aftermath left Syria shaken and the region on edge. The stakes had just been raised. The bombing marked a dramatic reversal in Israel-Syria relations. When Al-Golani's HTS toppled Assad, some in Israel hoped for a less hostile neighbor. Quiet diplomatic gestures and indirect talks hinted at possible cooperation. Both sides shared a common enemy, Iran and its proxies. Al-Golani's regime even worked to push Iranian influence out of Syria, aligning with Israel's interests. For a brief moment, the border was quieter than it had been in years. But this fragile understanding collapsed when reports of Druze repression in Suwaida emerged. The Druze with close ties to Israel became targets of the new regime. Israel could not ignore violence against a community linked to its own citizens. The Al-Golani regime's campaign in Suwaida was seen as a betrayal. The bombing of Damascus was Israel's answer. The era of quiet cooperation was over. Hostility returned, and a new, more dangerous phase began. The hope for a new relationship vanished overnight. The region braced for what would come next. Israel justified its airstrikes as a mission to protect the Druze minority in southern Syria. Officials claimed credible intelligence showed the Al-Golani regime was preparing a major assault on Suwaida. The government framed the attack as a humanitarian intervention, not aggression. Evidence was presented linking the bombed command centers to the crackdown on the Druze. The message: Israel was targeting those threatening innocent civilians, not Syria itself. The Druze community in Israel, influential and vocal, had demanded action. The government's response reassured them and sent a signal to the world. Unofficially, Israel also wanted to test Al-Golani's resolve and reassert its deterrence. The region's uncertainty after Assad's fall made a show of strength necessary. Protecting the Druze served both humanitarian and strategic goals. A stable, friendly, or neutral southern Syria is vital for Israel's security. The Al-Golani regime's actions threatened to destabilize the border. By acting, Israel protected both the Druze and its own interests. The strike was a warning. Israel would not tolerate threats to minorities or its borders. The world took notice. The stakes for both countries had never been higher. The Druze are an ancient, secretive religious community, mostly in Suwaida. During Syria's civil war, they stayed neutral, defending their land but avoiding alliances. The new HTS-led regime views the Druze with suspicion, seeing their faith as heretical. Religious and political tensions have made the Druze a target. The regime wants full control over Suwaida, ending its semi-autonomous status. The Druze resist, insisting on self-rule and refusing conscription. Local Bedouin tribes, sometimes armed by the regime, have clashed with the Druze. This divide-and-rule tactic keeps the Druze under constant pressure. Caught between regime forces and local militias, the Druze fight for survival. Their future remains deeply uncertain. In the weeks before the Israeli strike, Suwaida was in crisis. Peaceful Druze protests over taxes and conscription turned violent after security forces opened fire. The regime responded with arrests, torture, and executions. Local Druze militias rearmed, and clashes erupted across the province. The government escalated, bringing in tanks and shelling towns. Bedouin militias encouraged by Damascus attacked Druze villages. Civilians fled as violence spiraled. The Druze felt abandoned by the world, appealing desperately for help. They warned of an imminent massacre if the regime launched its final assault. Israel's intervention was triggered by this looming threat. The situation was dire. Action was urgent. The world's inaction left the Druze isolated. The Israeli strike changed everything. The Israeli airstrikes had an immediate effect in southern Syria. Within 2 days, the Syrian government withdrew its forces from Suwaida. Tanks and checkpoints vanished, and the planned offensive was cancelled. The Al-Golani regime had received Israel's message loud and clear. For the Druze, relief and celebration swept through the streets. Local leaders hailed the withdrawal as a victory for their resistance. Quietly, many acknowledged that Israeli intervention had saved them. The regime claimed the pullback was to reduce tensions, but few believed it. Observers saw a clear link between the bombing and the retreat. The Druze regained control of their region, but remained surrounded by a hostile government. The withdrawal may be temporary, the threat is not gone. The Druze must now navigate a fragile autonomy. The regime's ambitions remain unchanged. The battle for survival continues. The region is left in a precarious balance. The next move could reignite conflict. Syria is now a fractured nation, divided among rival factions. Al-Golani's government controls Damascus and some western cities, but its grip is weak. The north is held by Turkish-backed opposition groups. The northeast is run by Kurdish-led forces supported by the US. The south, including Suwaida, is contested by Druze militias and local clans. The country is a mosaic of ethnic, religious, and political divisions. The civil war's end did not bring unity. Conflict simmers everywhere. This fragmentation is Al-Golani's biggest challenge. Israel fears a weak Syria could breed new threats. HTS's radical roots worry Israel despite recent diplomacy. The bombing was a warning. Syria's internal chaos has regional consequences. The future is uncertain, and the risk of renewed violence is high. The region remains on edge. Israel's strike on Damascus was a calculated warning to the Al-Golani regime. The message: Israel will enforce its red lines with force if necessary. The crackdown on the Druze crossed one of those lines. The attack was both military and diplomatic, a show of strength. Israel's broader goal is to prevent new threats from emerging on its border. Iran remains Israel's main adversary, but HTS is viewed with suspicion. The bombing was meant to shape the new regime's behavior early on. Domestically, the move was popular, showing Israel's resolve to protect its interests and allies. The Druze connection resonated with the Israeli public. Israel prefers preemptive action to waiting for threats to grow. The fall of Assad created new uncertainties. By striking now, Israel hopes to prevent a wider conflict later. The risk was high, but inaction seemed riskier. The region's future may depend on how this message is received. The next steps will be critical. The Israeli bombing has opened a new uncertain chapter for Syria. The immediate crisis in Suwaida is over, but deeper problems remain. Al-Golani's regime is weakened and must choose its next move carefully. Will it seek revenge or focus on internal stability? The Druze have won a reprieve, but their future is still precarious. Syria's fragmentation makes lasting peace elusive. True stability will require compromise and respect for all communities. The choices made now will shape Syria's destiny. The world watches, hoping for peace, but bracing for more conflict. The story of Syria is far from over. The next chapter is yet to be written.